Jones and Graham Richardson.
God, I wish they wouldn't do that.
You've got a problem.
Putting your name first, it's appalling.
But your ego gets damaged every night.
It's appalling. No, it doesn't. Being with you, I
You'll
can't
be
lose.
overshadowed here because this bloke's smart.
Oh, well, this bloke
is
the Assistant Treasurer of Australia. I'll pay him due respect, Josh Frydenberg.
My apologies.
Welcome
Josh.
to the program, Josh. This bloke. That's the best he can do.
Nice to be with you, Richo.
Now, I want to ask you this.
Nice to be with you.
How confident are you of your figures? I mean, Alan Jones has just said they look a bit rubbery. He can't misquote me. He said it on air.
The forward
estimates. We're talking about when you get the surplus, because the growth assumptions are pretty high, aren't they?
Look, they're consistent with where the Reserve Bank is, and also the economists for both Westpac and NAB, who don't have a political axe to grind, have said that our forecasts are absolutely credible. Obviously, we are very hopeful that the announcements in the budget, particularly around small business, will stimulate growth and employment. We've got those free trade agreements, which are going to help supercharge our export sector. Clearly, I think this budget's been well received.
I just want one more on this. If you look at the last 15 years, so that covers Howard, it covers Rudd, Gillard, and all the rest of it. The number of times that Treasury have got this right is nil. The number of times that they have overestimated government revenue in all that time is twice. The number of times that they have underestimated it is 13. Now, they always do that, and that's because they're trying to be nice to the government, and so revenues never match the predictions. And when I say never, as I said, 2 in 15, they never match. So I reckon it'll be pretty obvious to you, even within 6 months, that your numbers aren't right.
Well,
Richard, what I'd say in response to that?
No, well, if I could just take... There's another half to that question, though, surely. I mean, we're talking about the never. Let's just talk about the reality. Where the numbers are right is that Joe Hockey and Tony Abbott were told when they came into government that the deficit would be $18 billion. There was an election in September. By the time Joe Hockey got to the mid-year economic forecast in December and then a budget in May, the $18 billion was a complete lie. It was $48 billion. The $18 billion was designed to try and win an election. $48 billion. Hang on. So that was his first budget, 48. Credit's got to be given in the here and now, in the impossible circumstances. Terrorism, there's $1 billion in this for terrorism. There's been a terrible drought that's got to be funded. The iron ore price has collapsed, and yet the figure, which is not, that's not rubbery, the one figure that's not rubbery, is the fact that the budget surplus will be $41 billion, down from $48 billion in those circumstances. Deficit. Sorry, what did I say? The deficit will be $41 billion. Josh Frydenberg, sure, you know figures, and you know how hard it is to get to all of that. It is a very significant achievement, surely.
Absolutely. As you say, we inherited a budget deficit at $48 billion. We got it down to next year to be $35 billion. In 3 years' time, it will be $7 billion. Now, obviously, there is a path there to surplus. But if you want to look at some of our assumptions, take the iron ore assumption. We have priced it under $50. Today, it's just under $60. So we've actually been particularly conservative about where we have said the revenue will come from the export of iron ore, which is 1/3 of all Australia's exports. So I think, you know, we have been conservative in parts of our assumptions, and I think that will hold us in good stead.
Hang on, mate. What about you've got the $5 billion in cuts that you made last year that haven't been passed and aren't going to be passed. Yep. You've still got them hanging around in the budget figures. You've got the education figures, and you've got Buckley's are getting the higher education stuff through, but you're running them up the flagpole again. The Senate will not salute, and so you lose them. What's more, Alan just proved my point. The $18 billion that became 40 whatever, that's exactly what Treasury do. 48. They're nice to governments, and the figures don't turn out to be right. Treasury signed off on the $18 billion, just like they've signed off on yours. I hope they're not as wrong on this occasion, but they will be wrong.
Well, let's forget Josh Frydenberg on that. I don't agree with any of that, because I think the climate has now arrived. The climate has now arrived where forget about all those minority lunatics that can't even read a bill that are in the Senate and shouldn't be there, and they're in there on 105 votes. There is a major party in the Senate called the Labor Party. And the Labor Party shortly is going to have to face up to the national interest because there's an election around the corner, and I believe the electorate are getting sick and tired of Labor saying no, no, no to everything. Even today, Shorten said the budget's going in the wrong direction. Hello? There's a reduction in the deficit and it's going in the wrong direction. So I think the onus now is on Labor, surely, to say these things have got to be passed because they're responsible attempts to put the budget into a better position.
Oh, give me a break.
We'll see what Josh says.
You're absolutely right. I mean, tomorrow night is Labor's moment of truth, because so far in 18 months, they've only come up with 2 proposals, and both of those are tax increases, one on super and one on multinationals, which we're told by the business community will see Australian jobs go offshore. Now, Bill Shorten came out against Tony Abbott and Joe Hockey's budget before he even saw it. We all remember him saying he hadn't heard what Julia Gillard had said, but he still agreed with what she said, even he hadn't heard it. Well, he came out against our budget before he'd even seen it. So I think, you know, he's all politics, no substance, and certainly, you're right, Alan, he has to find the savings. I mean, right now, the welfare bill calls upon the revenue from 8 in every 10 income taxpayers. They have to go to work. 8 in 10 income taxpayers in Australia go to work just to meet our welfare bill. So you've got to find savings.
No, but I don't disagree with any of that, and I support the idea of finding some savings. The idea that you knock off family tax benefit B for all those families out there in the suburbs, and then you give it back to them, some of it, not all of it, some of it, on the other hand, with childcare, doesn't add up to me. And in any event, doesn't matter what Alan Jones thinks or Graham Richardson thinks or even what Josh Frydenberg thinks, the Senate's not going to do it. When they don't do it, Josh...
The Senate or the Labor Party?
The Senate's not just the Labor Party.
Well, the Labor Party plus the Liberals pass everything.
They've got 30 odd in there, mate.
Labor plus the Liberals can pass it. Now, this is rubbish about family tax, and I'm sick and tired of hearing this lie being prospered.
It's not a lie.
It's a lie. The family tax benefit bill is $20.1 billion. The reduction in family tax benefits is $7 billion over 4 years. $7 billion over 4 years. So we're taking about $2 billion out of $20.1 billion of middle class welfare. Give me a break.
Right, middle class. Don't give me middle class welfare. These blokes are going to pay somebody on $350,000 a year. They're going to pay them childcare benefits. Give me a break.
No, that's a very valid point.
Can I just say on the childcare, what you've seen us do is invest in getting young families to work. I mean, take a couple, one who's a teacher, one who's a policeman, right? Well, that couple will spend 25% of their take-home pay sending their 2 kids into childcare. Now, what we've said from a government is we need to make it more affordable for you. So we've got a sliding scale. If you're lower and middle income, you'll get more support from the government, up to 85% of the cost of your childcare. And if you're a higher income, it will cap out. And we think that's a much fairer proposal, and one I think that the Labor Party will find hard to object to.
Josh, 2 points. Graham, in my opinion, is 1,000% correct. I mean, how can you justify saying to a family on $350,000, he's on 180, she's on 170, $350,000 that they're going to get childcare? Oh, but don't worry, it'll be capped at $10,000 for each child. I mean, this is nonsense. No, well, we shouldn't be prospering the notion, surely, that a family on $350,000 will have their hand in the pocket of some struggler in the suburbs.
I mean, Josh, at what point do you have enough money to not have to rely on government subsidies?
Well, can I just say, we've got a very progressive system in Australia. The top 1 or 2% of taxpayers contribute 26% of the total tax take. If you're in the top 20% of income earners, you only rely on government for 1% of your actual income. If you're in the bottom 20% of income earners in Australia, you rely on government for 55% of your income. Now, what you've seen in this budget is a fantastic opportunity for people of middle and lower income earners to go out and have a go. 96% of all businesses are small businesses with revenue under $2 million. What we've announced with this accelerated depreciation for people who are going to buy something for their business for under $20,000, you go and buy a motorbike. You go and buy a chainsaw. You go and buy a refrigerator for your local restaurant. That's the sort of stuff we want people to go out to
Josh,
buy
I agree.
and to
Josh,
stimulate.
That's the terrific idea, but let's just take me as an example. I am unincorporated. Yeah. I am a small business. I'm unincorporated. I've got an ABN. Now I earn slightly more than average weekly earnings.
You get a reduction in your tax.
But there's less than 2 million.
But you get a reduction in your tax.
There's less than 2 million coming in. I can go out and spend the 20 grand and get 10 grand off you. Why the hell should you be giving me 10 grand?
Well, you can actually get a 5% tax discount up to $1,000 a year, and you can also go out and buy something for your business up to $20,000. But you know, we're talking about the carpenter. We're talking about
but you're talking about me as well. You know? Why didn't you look behind that figure and have a look at the kind of incomes people have? Because giving me money is ridiculous.
If I look, can I just come back to the?
But it's got to go towards your business.
Can I just come back?
But it can. I can go out and what if I go out and I can buy a computer and some office equipment? Our stuff's pretty old. I'll whack all that in. I can spend 20 grand standing on me ear, and then you're going to give me 10 of it back.
What's the problem with that?
Well, mate, because the problem with that is on the money that I earn, you shouldn't be giving me 10 grand.
But hang on, it's not you. We're talking about a business with a turnover of $2 million.
Yeah.
They're not earning $180,000.
But I'm earning less than two.
Oh, you're overpaid.
My
we're
business,
talking about a business.
No, I have a business. I am a business, right?
Well, if you've got a business,
I sell services.
If you've got a business with a turnover of $2 million or less, you're not going to be on $180,000 paying yourself. I can tell you. If I could just come back to the product,
well,
if I could just come back to childcare,
I'm the only employee.
Just come back to childcare. Josh, just one point I want to ask you, and I don't know what you're being told about this, but you have a habit, rightly or wrongly, the government I mean, of quoting the Productivity Commission. You ask them to do a lot of work. The Productivity Commission have exposed something of a myth about this childcare, the argument being, and I know the government says this all the time, it's designed to help women get back into the workforce. Now, the Productivity Commission has said that only 16,000 women come back into the workforce after childbirth as a result of childcare. They might after the kids go to school. Now, if we're forking out $7 billion in childcare to get 16,000 women back into work, each job is costing the taxpayer $440,000. Now, how does that stack up?
Well, that's not right. What we have done is we've surveyed the million-plus families who are using childcare, and we've found that 24% of them would either enter into the workforce for the first time or spend longer in the workforce if indeed we had this package of measures through the Parliament. So that's 240,000 families that will spend more time in the workforce. This is going to really boost the productivity of the nation. I mean, we look to a country like Canada. They've got 6 percentage points more in terms of the number of women in the workforce. That's worth $25 billion a year to their economy. Productivity and getting women into the workforce is absolutely key to our economy, and that's why we've tightened what is called the work activity test, because we're saying that we're going to provide childcare when the parent is working, and that's a different from what has been previously.
All I'm saying is that the Productivity Commission said there's only 16,000 to go back. Could we just ask you, and we're going to take a break here, but something to think about. I mean, a lot has been made of the infrastructure deficit. That is, we are miles behind. When we talk in infrastructure about roads and hospitals and schools and bridges and so on, and there's $50 billion in the last budget, that's last year's budget, and yesterday's budget is about implementation. Can I ask you, when you come back from the break, why there was one word missing from the budget speech and all the budget papers? It's a simple little 3-letter word, and it's spelled D-A-M. Dam. There seems to be no concrete plan to harvest the water, to turn magnificent land into Australia productive land and feed all of Asia.
And just to keep our farmers alive, because this drought, just remember, we've got to go to a break. This drought, we've got an El Nino coming. Things are going to get drier, not wetter. We've got to do something about it. But
we'll do that after the break.
The main thing we're going to do is go to a break, and then we'll get back and get stuck right into Josh Friday's.
This is Richo and Jones, live on Sky News.
Could your bank account do with a little extra? Simply deposit your salary of at least $1,000 each month into an Orange Everyday account, and you'll get 2% cash back on Visa PayWave purchases under $100 and fee-free ATMs across Australia.
Doesn't matter whether you're in Ballarat, Bangkok or Brazil. We're all in it for the same thing. For the twists and turns, for the balls, for the bruises, and for the beasts. For the seconds that stretch into hours, we're in it for one simple thing. We're in it for the thrill of it. You bet.
It's our biggest breakthrough yet. We're extracting a part of worn-out batteries and making them into something strong. Introducing Energizer Eco Advanced, the world's first high-performance battery made with 4% recycled batteries. That's positive energy.
It's unbelievable, but the Hungry Jack's Stunner meal just got better, because now it comes with a cookies and cream drumstick mini. That's a cheeseburger, fries, Coke and a drumstick mini for just $5.25. The burgers are better at Hungry Jack's.
Woolies supports our farmers. That's why the AFL chose us to be their official milk partner. Woolies, proud supporters of Aussie farmers and feeding fresh talent.
Is it just me or is it getting hot in here? We all love a fantasy, but for a more genuine chance of the perfect match, try RSVP. With over 1,000 singles joining every day, you get a better shot at finding real love. Real love.
Hello? Strange? Felix?
Clever Felix. He'll do anything for his as good as it looks. You can see the succulent meaty pieces and how much he loves it.
Clever cats get Felix. Purina, your pet, our passion.
At NAB, we back businesses that back themselves. That's why we're committed to lending $1 billion a month. More yes for business, less missed opportunities. Call 13 10 12. NAB.
Now, back live with Alan Jones and Graham Richardson.
And thanks for your company here on Richo and Jones. Just before the break, I got very excited because Alan finally said something I agreed with when he finally got something right, having got it wrong all night. But he started talking about dams, and I think you should just continue on with that because I think there's some merit in
Josh, I just despair, quite frankly, as to the level of knowledge around the cabinet table. I know Scott Morrison objects to this comment in relation to the real issue out there. Now, I went to Burke and Brewarrina, and the real issue about drought is they don't want handouts. They don't want people to pay for the education of their kids at boarding schools. But there are people out there with a water licence. They're paying $1 million, $400,000 for that licence. It gets them nothing. Just an entitlement to pump water out of the Darling River when the water level, when the pump level is right. Now, they suddenly thought, hello, floods in the Hunter Valley 2 weeks ago, floods at Caboolture in Queensland, the water's going to come down through the tributaries, we'll reach the pump level, we'll be right. We'll pump the water according to our licence, which they'll pay for. The mining industry doesn't pay for water. It's given its water for nothing. That's another story. But they think the pump level's right. We'll be able to fill our own storage weirs. They pay for them. They build them themselves, and that will enable us to irrigate a small lump of land for winter and perhaps for summer until the rain comes. Suddenly they're told, these people, you can't exercise your licence. We know the pump level's there, but the water is needed in the Menindee Lakes to water Broken Hill. Broken Hill's water need is 5,000 megalitres a year. They currently have a reserve of 70,000. We're being told that they need 300,000, and these people now, a licence they're paying $1 million for, can't be exercised. Can't someone in government say who is the nitwit that's stopping them exercising their right to the pump level? Now, I know it's mostly state governments, but this is a national issue. It's a national drought.
Yeah.
It's a national tragedy.
Well, let me just say about you raise this issue of the dams. You're absolutely right. Half of Australia's rainfall falls above the Tropic of Capricorn, but it just seeps into the water, into the ground, and it's really not saved. And when you think about the potential for Australia to become the food bowl of Asia, we really do need to save that water and to use it very productively in agriculture and other areas. You're going to hear more from the government about dam initiatives with both the agriculture paper and the Northern Australia paper. So those discussions have been had and announcements are relatively imminent. But there was some really productive announcements in the budget and in the lead up around drought assistance. I'm very understanding of the fact that we've had sort of 1 in 100-year droughts or 1 in 50-year droughts in some parts of Queensland and New South Wales. There was over $330 million worth of initiatives. It included concessional loans. Now, why are concessional loans important? Because they can help a farmer restructure their debt. They can help a farmer get some hay onto his property to feed his cattle. They can help a farmer bring in some water to get them through a difficult patch. We're told that those concessional loans can make a real difference. We've also, dare I say,
Josh,
put
can I
money
interrupt you?
into mental health
Can I interrupt you, mate?
Yeah.
They've already got loans that they have no capacity to pay because they have no income. A concessional loan only adds to their debt. They don't, and by the way, have a check at the bureaucracy of it. There's about 70 pages and 1,000 questions that have to be answered. I mean, it doesn't come anywhere near the problem. If they were able to exercise the entitlement that they have to take water out of the Darling River, then that's all they ask. And they can't get that. I mean, can't someone in Canberra say, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure my federal colleagues with the responsibility in this area are talking to their state colleagues. But, you know, this drought will end, and we'll have to be in a position that we've got the people still on the land to be able to trade through these times.
Well, Josh,
the problem, mate.
Josh, we won't, and do you know why? Because the banks making billions of dollars of profit are foreclosing. Can't the national government call the banks in and say there has to be a moratorium on foreclosures? We want these people here when the drought breaks. They're now being moved off. The banks are now owning the land. You know what'll happen? They'll then sell the land to Indonesia and China once the drought breaks.
No, but the banks are sacrosanct. No government, Labor or Liberal will touch it. They just won't touch it.
Josh is the assistant treasurer.
They won't touch it. I mean, we guarantee them. They get everything off us. They charge 22% on credit cards. No one does a thing about it. No one even complains. I mean, governments, Labor and Liberal, are gutless when it comes to banks.
Josh?
Well, Barnaby Joyce has actually been having these conversations with both people on the land and the banks, trying to get to the bottom of a system which could make it much easier for people on the land to survive through these difficult periods. It's no point for the bank to end up owning the land if they haven't got a farmer on it, and if, you know, it hasn't been used for years and years.
Yes, there is. When the rain falls, they then sell it. Of course it is. When the rain falls, they then sell it. Listen, there's one bank at Walgett, National Australia Bank, they've closed the bank. They couldn't give a continental about the farmer. A woman came to me at Brewarrina and she said, Alan, I don't ever see a newspaper. I'm 100 miles from a newspaper. We don't have any comprehension of what these people are enduring, and yet when the rain falls, we're capable, and you said it, and I'm glad to hear you say it, feeding the whole of Asia. We can't feed Asia if China and Qatar and Indonesia own the farms.
And that's why, you know, we've just introduced a whole series of measures to bring greater transparency to the agriculture property market, and also to put fees and application fees on foreign investors, which in the budget is going to raise a significant amount of money, but also is going to ensure there's more integrity to our system. Can I say that 8 out of every 10 people employed in agriculture in Australia are in small businesses? And some of the announcements last night includes a help for our farmers to go out, and whether it's irrigation on their property, or whether it's buying feedlot, or whether it's putting in fencing, no longer will they depreciate that investment over 30 years. They can get an immediate deduction in the case of fencing.
Josh, when it comes to a drought, let me tell you, that's all terrific. But Alan made it the salient point earlier. Mining get the water for nothing. Farmers have to pay for it. That is not reasonable.
I mean, Ackland,
nowhere near reasonable.
Ackland, they're talking about, the federal government is talking about giving approval to Ackland Stage 3. They're going to take 9 billion litres of water out of the aquifer and reduce it by 47 metres.
For
How
nothing.
can a national government...
For nothing.
For nothing.
Not a penny.
Can I just ask you, because we are running out of time, what happened in question time today? Because the budget last night addressed this question, which I can't believe, I'm sure no one out there, of double dipping. It's hard to believe that there are people getting maternity leave in private sector employment and even the public service, and still taking the maternity leave, the parental leave that was introduced
that's how
by
it was designed.
No.
This was designed as a supplement, not as the be-all and end-all.
It's a double dip.
Oh,
they're getting
nonsense.
both... Well, here's the man. Is it a double dip or not?
Alan, the Labor Party was exposed in question time today for verballing both Scott Morrison and Joe Hockey, because what this system is, it's not really fair to the taxpayer. In a perfect world, we could have implemented our paid parental leave scheme, but we can't. Now, we have a situation today, if someone's in the public service, they get paid parental leave through their department, but then they can also go to the taxpayer through this other minimum wage, program for 18 weeks, and we think right now, particularly given the way the budget is, that that's not fair. Sure, they've been entitled to do it under the law, so we can't begrudge them for that. But it's not fair going forward that for all taxpayers we subject them to these
Josh,
existing rules without changes.
I can't let anyone on your side of politics at the moment lecture on fairness. Now let's just have a look at this really fair system. 1 year ago, that's not that long. 1 year ago, we were going to have the biggest childcare, I would say, PPL scheme in the world. In the world, massive, huge. You get 6 months off. Now what are you doing? You're actually reducing what people get. How in 1 year can it change from being the signature? But you are, because people are claiming both and you're taking one off it. Because you're reducing. That's by definition. How can you do that? How can you in 1 year turn around like that? That's $1 million.
You're the bloke that was whinging about someone getting childcare on $350,000.
Correct.
Here is a person working for Company X, and that company happens to provide maternity leave, and they're getting 12, 18, 16 weeks maternity leave on full pay. The government is providing a scheme for those who don't have maternity leave in the workforce. You're saying this person getting it from the employer...
The government always knew that people were getting both, Alan. That's just not right. The basis is wrong.
He's arguing that they shouldn't get both, and should they?
Oh, God. I mean, there are whole awards that are based on this.
Can I just say,
give me a break,
Richo.
That's what I want.
You could have your you could have your $1 million employee in the private sector, or indeed you could have a secretary of a department with getting a salary a bit lower than that, who actually gets the paid parental leave scheme from their own department and then tops it up with this 18-week minimum wage scheme.
People on that sort of money shouldn't be able to do it. So let's agree that you'll target them and you'll set some sort of limit on this. Let's agree that
you want them to have both.
Let's agree you'll put a limit on it.
I tell you what I agree.
Let's agree. We agree, do we? So you're going to put one on?
I tell you what I agree, Richo, that this year's budget, with its support in childcare for lower and middle income earners, with 170,000 pensioners. No,
you just
Richo,
call me Joe. My name is not Joe.
170,000. Richo, I'm just saying to you, this budget supporting middle and lower income earners with increased support for childcare. 170,000 pensioners getting up to $30 a fortnight more under our changes.
Josh,
and you're avoiding this double dipping. That's that's fairness, mate. That's fairness.
As I said, when I get lectured on fairness, it will not be by a Liberal, not out of this lot, not out of this current government. They're never going to lecture me on fairness, so we have to go.
I know. I've asked one final thing, then in all of this and the 24 hours since, you've got an opportunity to speak to the people watching this program across Australia. How are you asking them to interpret what you did last night?
Well, I think Joe Hockey sums it up well when he said this is a have-a-go budget. We are seeing record low interest rates. We've seen electricity prices come down, petrol prices come down, and now the government is going to support you in going out there, in investing in your business and employing people and capitalising on the opportunities that have presented themselves in the region. This is a great opportunity to have a go.
Never have I been more insulted by any human being than by you, Josh Frydenberg, to have confused me with Joe Hockey. I will not sleep tonight. That is absolutely the end, and that is the end of this. We've got to go. Thanks very much for your time, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
And Alan and I shall return in just a moment for a few choice words.